back to the whole question of story, I think the games where the story simply exists as an excuse to go out and blow things up or shoot things or whatever, I mean...
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, no, it's not that they can't be fun, but they're not what the medium is capable of. I think computer games have a lot of potential to really, to really exploit the power of the medium. You've got a gadget here that connects you with lots of other players. It does all the game mechanics invisibly. It gives you incredible graphics, sound, and you can do a lot with that. And really, I don't think we're taking advantage of it yet.
What would you hope for, Daniel, in terms of the types of stories we will see in computer games? I mean, are they very similar right now?
No. What I'm hoping for and working towards is not in, we've had the barest glimmerings of right now. I'm looking for, and it's not just story, I mean, it's the way the world is structured. It's the way the world imparts the story that's important. Story is...
It's more how the story is embedded.
Yeah, it's how the game system and the world system makes us feel and how we respond and what we can do. I mean, I hate to use a word like empowered because it's a horrible buzzword now, but how the game system empowers us to find ways to connect with other people in much more relevant and meaningful and I guess meaningful is the word, but I keep coming back to that in ways that matter to us, even if we don't feel it at the time, even if we're just playing a game at the time.
Steve, so you have large masses of players, and when they communicate with each other, I mean, how do you find that different from, say, a single-player game?
As in like a tabletop, you mean, or?
Yeah, versus the scale of, a small group versus a large group.
Well, the things are right now, the tabletop game, all the action is essentially going through the games master. And the players might go off and talk or something, but ultimately everything has to come through one person. In a live game, in a well-run live game, I should say, the games masters will not see roughly 98% of the game. Most, in fact, what the games masters are seeing is the most boring stuff, where they're adjudicating rules or running game mechanics, because the game, as much as possible, runs itself. Your group, the way you manage 50 people or 5,000 people in a live game is to let them do it themselves, because you can't do it. There's no way that one person or even a team of games masters can keep track of what all these people are doing. So you have to design the game to bring the interactions, so they spin out of control and then they spin back into where you can see it and adjust what's happening, and then let it go again.
Do you think that's similar, Daniel, in MMOs?
Well, MMOs are an interesting thing because they can be a lot more interesting than they are when the players make them more interesting than they are. One important thing about all video games, not just online games, in all video games, the game doesn't actually take place on the screen that you're looking at. The game actually takes place between the player's ears. And there's a lot of people making games who I don't think really get this distinction, which I think is crucial. It's what's on the screen zaps us. It's how it gets to us. It's how it connects with us, what we put into it. I mean, it takes a big leap of imagination to go from these kind of polygonal pixelated characters running around that's us and that's the world and that's important. But we make that leap. We make that huge suspension of disbelief. And games don't often enough remember to go after what's, to evoke something in a person instead of focusing on just putting the stuff on the screen that's interesting.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the panel, and I want to invite people who have questions to ask the questions that I have neglected. Would anyone like to be first? In the way.
Well, I had a question about sort of like the immersion in the game world and the story. And I mean, it seems to me that in a lot of these MMOs, there's a lack of failure. I mean, like you run around and you got to kill the ice wizard that 30,000 people already killed and doesn't seem to die, and that you go in there and you can't fail. I mean, you can die a million times in the game,
There's no
but
consequences, right?
you can
That's what I
you
said.
can go back and he'll always
No
be there.
consequences.
The problem with failure is the person stops spending $15 a month after it fails. No, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And this actually goes back to you've hit on something really important. We had huge discussions, late, all night long discussions arguing this point back in the paper game days, back when I was in college, about whether or not if death is removed from and this is D&D, this is where you really could die and your character is going to tear up the character sheet. And some people felt that this should never happen because it's too unpleasant for the player. It's just a game, so play. And on the other hand, you have people saying, well, then it robs it of the vitality. It robs it of something really precious goes away when the consequences go away. So what's important, I think, because we don't want people unsubscribing en masse. You'll be a not very employed game designer if you do that. But there are ways to build consequences, I think, and there are ways to build real consequences. And this gets back to something that I like to do in even before there were online games, in single player games. I never liked to build the right path and the wrong path in a story. I thought this was dumb. And this goes back to Choose Your Own Adventure books, which I wrote too. I never liked it. I'd be playing these and I'd be like, wow, well, this is the obviously stupid thing to do, and this is the obviously smart thing, so I'll flip to that page. I like to do two good options and make the player have to choose or sometimes three good options, and let the player choose what they were going to do. And another thing I like to do was to build one path that was kind of a short-term gain path versus a short-term loss, long-term path which might have a long-term payoff later. There's tremendously psychologically very rich in video games, a few games that really do it. Because even though you kind of think that the game designer is going to reward you later for sticking to, I did a D&D computer game called Al-Qadim, which is long forgotten, but it was one of the first that actually had actually it was the first that was really arcade-like, but it was in the setting of, this is an Arabian Nights setting, and characters could, virtue and honor was really important in the source material. So I wanted to put it in the game. So you did have to make some choices where you could compromise your honor to help your family restore their honor. But if you did that, there were long-term payoffs, there were long-term negative consequences for doing that. But if you stuck to the high road, you stuck to your guns, and you took every setback and every defeat that gave you, you got the good ending. So multiple good endings, good, better, best ending. And this, I think, has a lot of application in game design now, in online gaming. Those rules still really work because players will still, even if they think they know that they have to do the tough thing, they don't want to do the tough thing. If you give them the option of, okay, you can compromise everything you stand for by taking the bazooka and shooting your enemy right now, they'll still really, really, really want to do that. And it does have relevance. It does work on players.
The other thing to recognize, just on that, quick on that, is that when you have a situation where it's a very binary, you get killed, you don't get killed, well, yeah, you don't want to kill someone who's their character and have them stop paying for your game. But consequences can be different than what just being eliminated from the game. If your goal in the game is to become Emperor of the Universe and you fail, you're still in the game may go on, but you didn't get the thing you were after. Maybe you'll find another way to get it, maybe you'll find some other way to maneuver into in the future to dislodge whoever did get it. But the consequences can be pretty unpleasant without having to eliminate someone from the game.